Excellencies, distinguished delegates from around the world, colleagues and friends, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in each part of this planet. My name is Thanawat Singh, Chairperson of the Committee on World Food Security, CFS, and Permanent Representative of Thailand to the United Nations agencies in Rome. I would like to welcome you all to the 47th plenary session of the Committee on World Food Security. The past year has been dramatic on many fronts. On 30th of January 2020, WHO Director General declared the COVID-19 outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. The pandemic has disrupted and continued to disrupt the world as we know it, with a heavy toll of lives and livelihoods, creating suffering and even more food insecurities and malnutrition. I invite you all to join me for a minute of silence to commemorate all those who have perished from this pandemic and those who get sick and suffering from COVID-19. Let each of us use this moment of quiet mindfulness to work even harder and more effectively to achieve CFS noble missions to ending global hunger and malnutrition. Please join me a minute of silence. Thank you very much. We now start the CFS 47th, and I will ask the CFS Secretary to provide us some administrative and logistical detail of these sessions. Mr. Chris Hagedorn lead the CFS Secretariat team, which since the earliest day of the lockdown transitions quickly, seamlessly to this virtual world. We are all now very familiar with these virtual technologies and virtual meeting now today. Through the 2020, the Secretariat team ensured the Bureau conducted regular meetings, held very topical and high quality special events, and ensure CFS remain active and relevant. We address the impact of the COVID-19. We enjoy the CFS high-level panel of experts to provide its expertise and policy perspective, and they ensure the CFS program of work was delivered on time and of the highest quality. May I give the floor to our Secretary to give us more detail of the today and also for administrative announcement, please. Secretary.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Let me see if the video will be turned on. It doesn't seem to be linked to my headset or my monitor, but Excellencies, members, participants, and special guests, welcome to this 47th session of the CFS. I'll start with just a few quick announcements. First, the European Union is participating in this meeting in accordance with paragraphs 8 and 9 of Article 2 of the FAO Constitution. A declaration to this effect is contained in CFS 47, INF Doc 6. As of this morning, we have registered 112 countries and 9 non-members. And I am very, very pleased to announce that our recent membership drive has resulted in 9 new members of CFS, including Croatia, Djibouti, Honduras, Latvia, the Maldives, Moldova, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Ukraine. Welcome to you all. It's nice to have you with us. I remind all that membership of CFS is free, but participation in plenary sessions is required for sustained membership. Therefore, our working quorum is 57 member states, and the number of registered attendees is 1,840. These numbers will all be included in the final report. Last, let me remind participants the CFS chair will recognize and call upon speakers. So please keep microphones off unless you are specifically identified. If so, please turn your video on and unmute yourself. All sessions are being recorded, and links to these recordings will be shared on the CFS 47 webpage. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you very much, our Secretary. Now we can proceed to agenda item 1, organizational matters. The CFS Bureau discussed and approved the provisional agenda and timetable in consultation with its advisory group and also ad hoc advisory group members. The CFS Bureau members since CFS 46 are Afghanistan, Brazil, Dominican Republic, Equatorial Guinea, France, Indonesia, India, Mali, Mauritania, New Zealand, Russian Federation, and the United States. At CFS, we also have alternate members, including Argentina, Australia, Bangladesh, Canada, Cabo Verde, Costa Rica, Iran, Oman, Senegal, South Korea, Spain, and Switzerland. We will confirm a small update to this list of members on Thursday afternoon. Let me thank all of them for their many hours of substantive meetings, their substantive inputs and improvements on our documents, and for their commitment to the relevance and qualities of this unique and valuable platform of the CFS. The Secretariat has prepared for us a guide to CFS 47 which detail information on each session. Throughout this week, in the interest of generating lively and interactive debate, I urge you to keep intervention as brief as possible. For Session 2C, the Bureau has established a maximum of 3 minutes for delegation statement, with 5 minutes for ministers, vice ministers, and delegates speaking for regional groups and spokespersons for the civil society and private sectors mechanisms. I will give a warning when 1 minute remains to signal to conclude. You also will see a timer on your screen. Should any delegations wish, they can forego delivering a floor statement in lieu of sharing their statement in writing or sending a pre-recorded video statement to the Secretariat for posting on the CFS 47 website. If so, please email them to CFS Secretariat, cfs@fao.org. I would like to highlight that the decisions must be taken this week as the following. On Tuesday afternoon, we will update the rolling sessions of MyPAL, our multi-year program of work for the period of 2020 to 2023. This will include confirming TOR of our workstream on gender equalities and women empowerment, which the open-ended working group finalized in December 2020. On Wednesday, we expect to conclude a 5-year process by endorsing the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition, with just last Friday that we could manage to finalize the negotiation, after which We will discuss this dissemination, uptake, and implementation of the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition. Before, I would like to inform you more. Before starting today under the item 2, we will focus on the CFS HLPE report number 15, building a global narrative toward 2030. If delegation statements are not concluded by 5:30 p.m. today, we will need to find times during this week to conclude these before the drafting committee meets. On Thursday morning, the Secretariat special sessions will be held focused on the impact of CFS policy products on country level food security, nutrition, and COVID recovery. On Thursday afternoon, we will close by adopting the final report. Last, this week we will hold 12 side event, 3 side event per day at the lunch break. So we will need to select and register individually. These were selected from among nearly 50 very strong and diverse applications. The schedule and detail are available on the CFS website. Please visit. After listening to the detail of the today program and also agenda of the CFS 47s, I hope that we can adopt provisional agenda and timetable as it is. I'm not sure that, is there any comment from the floor? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Thank you very much. The agenda is adopted. Next, the Secretariat will give us the proposed composition of the drafting committees. I will give the floor to our Secretary to inform us about the drafting committee. Secretary, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me take 1 second. I am looking for the latest list, which was updated just this morning. 1 minute. Emilio, if you are on and you have it handy, can I ask you to read that out?
Yeah. Okay. Our Secretary, please. Okay, for information that I received, our Secretary can intervene after. Based upon the regional submission, the following countries have been nominated to serve as the drafting committee members. The chairs of the drafting committees, Mr. Manaj Mitra from Bangladesh. The member of the drafting committees, the Secretary can provide you shortly. Are you ready, Secretary?
We will provide this in the chat function just so everyone has that handy. Let me get that to you in just a moment.
Yeah, so far we received the name of the committee members from each regional groups. But anyway, we're still waiting for confirmation from Near East. And I do hope that our colleagues from the Near East group can provide the names or the countries who will participate in the drafting committee. The European Union will be participated in the drafting committee in accordance with the paragraph 8 and 9 of Article 2 of the constitutions, and on matters within its competence will exercise on an alternate basis. And the membership rights of the European Union member state nominated to the drafting committee. The drafting committee is scheduled to meet on Wednesday evening. We will brief the drafting committee members on Tuesday morning at 8:45 a.m. by Zoom, the detail of which will be emailed to all drafting committee. I think, have you got the list of the drafting committee on the chat?
I do. Let me read that out.
Yeah, please. Secretary, please read it out.
So we have Bangladesh as the chair. We have Senegal, Argentina, Brazil, the Dominican Republic, the United States of America, New Zealand, the Russian Republic, the Russian Federation, and Spain. And again, to repeat, we will be briefing the membership tomorrow morning at 8:45, and links and information will be emailed to you shortly. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you very much, Secretary, for informing us the list of the drafting committee. Now, may the committee appoint the chair and membership of the drafting committee by acclamations. Thank you very much for your adoption for the drafting committees, which we expect to have a substantive report of the discussion during this week plenary. Now we can move to the item 2, food securities and nutrition, building the global narrative toward 2030. This session is articulated in 3 parts, all linked one to another. In the first part, we will listen to keynote remark from the United Nations Secretary General, the principals of the 3 Rome-based agencies, and myself as well. Next, we will listen to Martin Cole, chairpersons of the CFS high-level panel of experts on food securities and nutrition, CFS HLPE, and Jennifer Clapp, members of the CFS HLPE steering committees and lead author of the report number 15, Food Securities and Nutrition, Building a Global Narrative Toward 2030. This report is excellent, urging us to strengthen our conceptual thinking and understanding the food securities and nutrition using 2 more proposed dimensions of food securities, sustainability and agency, and recommending critical shift to accelerate the implementation of policies and innovative solutions to ensure we reach the SDG 2 zero hunger and related goals by 2030. Last, we will listen to delegation statement commenting on the report and highlighting measures undertaken to achieve zero hunger. Now let me hand the floor to UN Special Envoy Dr. Agnes Calibarta, who is with us today, to share a formal message for CFS 47 plenaries from the United Nations Secretary Generals. The floor is yours, Dr. Calibarta.
Thank you for those introductory remarks, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I have the honor and privilege in my capacity as Special Envoy to the UN Food Systems Summit to deliver the UN Secretary General's message to the 47th session of the Committee on World Food Security. I send my warm greetings to the 47th session of the Committee on World Food Security. Food security and nutrition are among the most pressing development, security, and human rights issues of our times. 2021 will be a pivotal year for achieving SDG 2 on hunger. The latest state of food security and nutrition in the world report shows that COVID-19 pandemic is having a terrible impact on communities around the world, driving up hunger and malnutrition even further, and reversing progress in many areas of this complex issue. Food aid is not the answer. We need fundamental systemic change to address hunger, sustainability, and malnutrition while upholding human rights, alleviating poverty, and supporting inclusive and sustainable development for all. Such change can only be driven and coordinated by a strong multilateral system. This is core to my thinking behind the Food Systems Summit later this year in New York and the pre-summit in Rome in July. The Committee on World Food Security has an important role to play in this summit. From the report of your high-level panel of experts, to your policy convergence products. This committee is our unique platform for multi-stakeholder engagement on SDG 2, bringing together governments, civil society, private sector, scientists, financial institutions, United Nations experts, and others. It is an important example of inclusivity that I hope can be emulated at the national level. The guidelines and principles we have produced can support coherent solutions that are nature-based, protect the environment, address inequalities, promote the right to food, and drive climate action. The voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition that you are scheduled to agree this week address the full complexity of our food systems and their shortcomings, and will make significant contribution to the Food Systems Summit and its follow-up. I strongly encourage all stakeholders to use and implement these guidelines when they are adopted, and I pledge the support of the entire United Nations family for your efforts. After all, food security is a fundamental question of human rights and dignity. I wish you every success in your deliberations at this plenary session. End of statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a statement of the UN Secretary General read out by UN Special Envoy Dr. Calibarta, and also we will see you during this week, and also you will continue your conversation with us during the CFS 47. I will now share my remark and then invite the heads of the 3 Rome-based agencies to deliver remark. We will listen in order to Director Generals Chu Dong-chu of FAO, and also Mr. Gilbert Humbo, President of IFAD, and Mr. David Beasley, Executive Director Generals, Executive Directors of WFP. Now is my remark. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be the chairperson of the Committee on World Food Security, CFS, and address to you today at the opening of the 47th sessions of the CFS. Unfortunately, 2020 has been a tough year for food security and nutrition. Even more people have lost or will lose their jobs because of the socioeconomic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The national and global inequalities are set to rise. Despite the many challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the work of the CFS has never been more relevant than before. In the early of the pandemic last year, CFS brought its members and stakeholders together to exchange experience and lessons learned on the implications and potential impacts of the pandemic on food security and nutrition at the national and global levels. The committee also requested CFS high-level panel expert, CFS HLPE, to produce the excellent issue paper on the impact of the COVID-19 on food security and nutrition. In October last year, CFS also organized the high-level events to exchange expertise and knowledge to this unique and inclusive platform of CFS. The CFS continued to play its roles in providing the evidence-based policy guidance to overcome the challenges and the uncertainties of this difficult time. Ladies and gentlemen, since its reform in 2009, CFS has continued demonstrating its collective commitment to ensure food security and nutrition for all human beings by serving as a platform for exchanging good practices and driving policy convergence process as you actively participated. Using a multi-stakeholder inclusive approach, CFS has developed and endorsed the policy recommendation and guidelines on a wide range of food security and nutrition related topics. CFS will continue to ensure that all voices are heard, and also to keep the inclusivities of this committee. Just last week, the negotiation of the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition was finalized with great support, contribution, compromise, and flexibilities of members and stakeholders. And also thank you for the chair of the Open Networking Group, Ambassador Hukavin, for his committed leadership. On this Wednesday, we expect that the plenary will conclude by endorsing this voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition. However, we still have a lot of work to do. After CFS 47, we will start the negotiations of the policy recommendation on agroecological and other innovative approaches, which is very timely and important. Additionally, this year, CFS will be taking up of gender equalities and women's empowerment as its next main topic. We will confirm TOR for this work stream at this plenary. And then we will continue other work stream on youth, on data analysis and inequality as well. Ladies and gentlemen, CFSR's COVID-19 has changed our life and highlighted how fragile our food systems are. The Food System Summit will be an opportunity to build on this momentum. We need to build a far more resilient system, one that offers access to affordable, nutritious food that nurtures people and sustain our planet. A clear signal of an already solid and fruitful collaboration between CFS and CFS HLPE and the Food System Summit is present today of the presence of Special Envoy Dr. Calibarta with us today and throughout the week. We expect that the CFS policy products, including the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition, will contribute to the UN Food System Summit. I also take this opportunity to have here FAO and IFAD to tell Director General Chu Dong-chu and President Hongbo, and I will also convey this message to Executive Director Blisley. We need the Rome-based agency support and commitment to help CFS with the implementation and uptake of the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition and other CFS products at the country level, at the field level. Developing the policy and guideline is half of the job, but we still have another half of the job in promoting the uptake and implementation of those policies at the local and national level in order to create the global impact. We need your strong commitments, bold actions, innovative solutions, and applicable strategies to transform our food system and to achieve all SDG. Let me conclude by thanking you all for your great contribution and support to CFS and thanking you for your commitment to rebuilding better. You all are the champion. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to ask Director General of FAO, Dr. Chu Dong-chu, to deliver his statement. The floor is yours, Director General.
Thank you, Chair Tianxi, and the distinguished delegates. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. We are in a decisive period with rapid development and fundamental changes happening all around the world. A pandemic with a devastating impact on the global health, economy, and societies that might push some 100 million people into extreme poverty and many more into the chronic hunger and malnutrition. Unsustainability agri-food systems that continue to put the pressure on natural resources, biodiversity, environment, and the climate. A world that is off track in achieving SDG 2. More than 3 billion people with no access to the health debts, and nearly 700 million suffering from hunger. 2 billion people consuming low quality diets that cause micronutrient deficits and contribute to the diet-related obesity and non-communicable diseases. We have only 9 harvests before we reach the year 2030. The pandemic has prompted all of us to rethink the way we produce, process, and consume food, and to reconsider the way we address the global challenges of today. Challenges that are too big for any region, country, or sectors to overcome alone. We must galvanize all partners to work together in harmony and solidarity to make agri-food systems more inclusive, resilient, and sustainable. CFS has a crucial role to play within this collective effort to promoting the policy convergence and coherence to transform our agri-food systems, end hunger, and ensure food security and nutrition for all. As the host of the CFS Secretary and one of its founders, FAO strongly values the committee's potential as a unique global platform for multi-stakeholder engagement in the fight against hunger and malnutrition. Consequently, we invited the CFS to organize the special event at each of the FAO regional conference held last year, and I joined my friend, the FAO chair, to speak at all of this event. I think that's one first in the history. FAO employees support the use of CFS policy products in their activities, and FAO representatives advocate for all the countries becoming members of the committee. I'm pleased to note the 9 new countries has recently joined the CFS, namely Croatia, Djibouti, Honduras, Latvia, Maldives, and Moldova, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Grenada and Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last 18 months, fundamental transformative action was taken at the FAO. We proceeded with the structure adjustment and the reforecasting of all efforts to be in alignment with our original mandate and the basic text for a new FAO that is more efficient, effective, and inclusive. We launched the Hand-in-Hand initiative, which is evidence-based, country-led, and country-owned, and aims to accelerate agricultural transformation and sustainable rural development to eradicate poverty, SDG 1, and to end hunger and all forms of malnutrition, SDG 2. State-of-the-art tools bolster this innovative approach, the Hand-in-Hand Geospatial Platform Data Lab for Statistical Innovation, and SMAP. Our holistic COVID-19 response and recovery program harnesses science, technology, data, human enterprises, and creativity to build back better. We introduced a modern FAO strategy for private sector engagement to enhance our strategic partnerships, scale up, and steer all our efforts to jointly achieve the SDGs. We continued strengthening our interaction with the civil society, ensuring, for instance, that their voice is heard at all regional conferences within relevant activities of FAO. We presented a new strategic framework that put at its center the vision of leaving no one behind through the sustainable, inclusive, and resilient agri-food systems for better production, better nutrition, a better environment, and a better life. We strongly believe that accelerating, scaling up science, technology, and innovation is the key to meet the aspiration of transforming our agri-food systems and moving forward, achieving the SDGs, especially SDG 1, SDG 2, and SDG 10. We appointed the first chief scientist in FAO history. She is a member of the core leadership group, along the deputy director generals, the chief economist, and the director of my cabinet. This unprecedentedly transformative process produced a new, reformed, and agile FAO that is focused on the better serving its members and strengthen collaboration with the other partners. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to translate the CFS products and recommendations into concrete action on the ground at the regional, country, and local levels. But the change can only happen if all stakeholders take responsibility and action. That means integrating the CFS policy frameworks as appropriate into national dialogues, legislative frameworks, as well as national, regional, and global development of efforts. The CFS guidelines on tuna have become the reference document on the land tenure and governance issues, including efforts to reverse land degradation and prevent further biodiversity loss. I'm glad that Asia is using CFS principle responsible investments in agriculture and food systems as the cornerstone of their work. The CFS framework for action in protracted crisis is another important tool that can help improve the food security and nutrition of the populations affected by or at risk of protracted crisis by addressing critical manifestors and building resilience, adapting to the specific challenges and contributing to addressing underlying causes. More needs to be done to further implement these guidelines and principles. And this week, the CFS volunteer guidelines on food systems and nutrition are submitted for the adoption after more than 3 years of multi-stakeholder negotiations. This is a vitally important task. I thank all those involved in the hard work required to get to this point. I must stress that for all CFS products, including these guidelines, it is essential that they rely on clear science and evidence, and that you develop negotiation modalities to speed up the process, keeping the science and evidence while not sacrificing inclusiveness. Once these guidelines are adopted, FAO will work closely with IFAD, WFP, WHO, and others to ensure that they are distributed, understood, and used in achieving the transformation needed to eliminate all forms of malnutrition. Because the value of all guidelines lies in their application on the ground. The work you will start soon to negotiate the policy recommendation on agroecology and other innovative approaches is also timely and relevant. It is a valuable contribution to agro-food system transformation, especially if that transformation is to be empowering, equitable, regenerative, promoting new technology, while the protecting environment and the rights of all the producers. CFS has a challenging program for this year, which will look into inequalities, youth engagement, and data systems. In all these topics, FAO is ready to share its expertise and support you. I'm also pleased to see the food loss in the West is among the side events scheduled for this week, led by the FAO and its partners. FAO strongly supports all members in reducing food loss and waste, giving its overwhelming benefit for consumers, producers, our natural resources, and our environment at large. Here again, the CFS can take full advantage of its inclusive structure and engage with all stakeholders. The dynamic and engaged FAO Youth and Women's Committee are ideal partners in this context. We commend CFS for playing a visible and critical role in the upcoming UN Food Summit. We need to ensure that the outcome of summit leads to impactful and concrete post-meeting actions. Coherent, effective, collective work by the CFS with all partners after the UN Food Summit will be vital in this context. FAO is committed to a dynamic and impactful committee on world food security that adds value and momentum to our common goal of to achieve the SDGs. Let's work together for this noble mission and historical duties. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Director General, for your words and also for your commitment. As FAO is the founders, as FAO is the host agencies, we would like to thank for bringing CFS to the FAO regional conference to meet the FAO country team and also the country members to know more about the CFS, to know more about the CFS policy products. And we ensure that together we can make greater impact, greater outcome for all generations, for all people around the world. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to President Humbo of IFAD. President Humbo, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. Good morning, distinguished delegate, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to welcome the new report from the high-level panel of experts. In particular, I appreciate how the report clearly identifies an urgent need to strengthen and consolidate our thinking around food security and nutrition. We need to widen our understanding of food security and the pathways to better nutrition for men and women, infants and children. All together, we need to have that better understanding. And we need to adopt a food systems analytical and political framework. IFAD fully supports these findings and the need for a strategic thinking. The new report provides more evidence that as a community, we are falling short on the Agenda 2030, especially the SDG 2. It shows that food systems face a range of challenges like to major trends, challenges linked to major trends in the drivers of food system change. The pandemic has given the report greater urgency and made its finding sharper. As it says, and I would like to quote, the crisis has been a wake-up call to address the multiple complex challenges facing food systems. Most obviously, food systems need to be made more resilient and responsive to the need of consumers and producers. For poor people, food is both their sustenance and their livelihood. We need food systems to be equitable, to be fair to food producers, to be fair to processors, to be fair to everyone along the value chain. This means making them more equitable and inclusive, empowering and respectful, regenerative, healthy and nutritious, as well as productive and prosperous for all. This clearly links back to the right to food. This is the moment to come together to take consistent approach across food systems and to implement policies in a more coordinated way. So the voluntary guidelines on food system and nutrition, to me, they are a great example of how partnership can deliver positive results. So we look forward to their adoption this week. Dear colleagues, the need for strategic thinking is urgent. This thinking must be underscored by concrete measures. We must take action in solidarity to ensure the right to food. We need to think especially of the needs of the most vulnerable. Food systems need to work for the most marginalized, including small-scale producers and workers. And this is a responsibility for us, for all, government and private sector alike. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID pandemic is a global crisis, but it's not the first, and very likely will not be the last. So we need to do better. Food systems need to be transformed to reduce their carbon footprint, preserve biodiversity, and provide healthy and affordable food for urban as well as rural people. They also need to be inclusive and fair to everyone along the value chain, including those most often marginalized, including women, indigenous people, youth, and people with disabilities. Through targeted and well-considered action, we can transform food systems, increase resilience, and fulfill our commitment to leave no one behind. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the President of IFAD, Mr. Gilbert Humbo, for being with us and also for your continued support and commitment to work and support the CFS. And also last year is very important because IFAD also developed the database of their CFS policy products. All the policies now is available and also is easily used, and also that's why we would like to thank IFAD for your investment and also for your support to the work of CFS and investing in rural people and smallholders around the world. Thank you for your support. Now I would like to give the floor to Executive Directors of WFP. Unfortunately, today Mr. Blesley cannot join us by himself. However, he sent us the video message to this plenary.
The 47th session of the Committee on World Food Security is meeting at a time of unprecedented challenges to the global food security system. The combined effects of climate, conflict, and now COVID-19 mean that almost 1 billion people on the planet do not have enough to eat. The committee can and it must play a vital role in rallying the support and the resources needed to address this global humanitarian crisis. That's why supporting your critical work is a shared priority for all three Rome-based agencies. 2021 is going to be a very difficult and extremely challenging year. There's no doubt about that. So we all have to work together if we're going to get life-saving help to the many millions who need it desperately now. And let me tell you, there are so many people on the edge who just can't wait any longer. They need our help today. Tragically, famine is once again knocking at humanity's door. In countries such as Burkina Faso, South Sudan, Yemen, there are already people living in famine conditions. And we believe 30 million people in over 36 countries are in grave danger of starvation. In the short term, we need to go all out to reach those at greatest risk. We can still pull desperate communities back from the brink as long as we act now. At WFP, we're ready to play our part. Our deep field presence and global footprint means that we can mobilize fast as long as we get the resources that we need. But in the longer term, we need to transform our global food system so they become more resilient and more sustainable. The report being discussed by the committee today, it underlines the urgency of this task. Even before COVID-19, the pandemic hit and exposed how fragile our food system really is. Too many people already didn't have access to healthy and nutritious food. And that's not because there isn't enough to go around. It's because the systems which move our food from farm to the fork, they're not functioning as efficiently and as effectively as they can. At the World Food Program, we're working together with you to strengthen food systems so that they deliver for everyone, especially the most vulnerable communities around the world. We run post-harvest loss programs, giving farmers storage facilities to ensure their crops don't spoil before they can be sold. We work with farmers' cooperatives, helping them access the agricultural tools and techniques they need to grow food commercially. And we use our firepower as a major food buyer to create and support local markets. In 2020, just for example, we spent nearly $700 million on local and regional procurement, buying over about 1.2 million metric tons of food commodities, helping local communities, smallholder farmers. WFP is fully committed to the success of the Food Systems Summit plan for 2021, and we're playing an active role laying the groundwork for its success. WFP is the lead UN agency for Action Track 5 of the summit, building resilience to shocks and stress. And we're collaborating with a wide range of partners to come up with effective solutions going forward. We're also working closely, of course, with the other Rome-based agencies to coordinate our efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, the humanitarian crisis that we face today is a stark reminder of how our global food systems are not reaching all of the most vulnerable. Yes, we're reaching a lot, but we can do better. And we don't need to stop until we reach and end hunger 100%. Even as we work to get help where it's needed most today, we have to make sure we plant the seeds for more resilient, more sustainable food systems tomorrow. This is the best way, the only way, we can achieve our shared ambition of a future free from hunger. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a video message from Executive Directors of WFP. We can do better, and we need to action now. And that's why once the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition is endorsed by the plenary this week, we need all commitment, we need all support from the members, UN agencies and other stakeholders to take up and to implement and bring the policies of the CFS and also the voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition into action, at the country level, at the ground level, in order to create the impact for all people. Thank you to our distinguished guests for their works and their concrete actions of support to CFS. Thank you very much for the three Rome-based agencies, FAO, WFP, and IFAD. Let me now introduce Dr. Martin Cole, chairperson of the CFS high-level panel of experts. Martin has been close working partner throughout our respective tenures, and he has ably lead the group during a very challenging pandemic. He and others members of the CFS HLPE deserve special thanks and praise for their contributions on the issues of the COVID-19 response, including their excellent issue papers of this topic. Martin and I have also been collaborating to ensure the CFS is prominently considered in the lead up to the UN Food System Summit. Martin has been part of the scientific group representing the CFS HLPE, while I have been part of the advisory committee and champion group of the Food System Summit. Martin, now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanawat, for those warm remarks. Director General, Special Envoy, Distinguished delegates, it's a pleasure on behalf of the HLP to formally present the Report 15 on food security and nutrition, building a global narrative towards 2030. We're going to hear a technical presentation from the lead author and the project team leader, Jennifer Clapp. But I thought I'd just make a few remarks just setting out the scene of the report. Clearly, this report is a little different. It was an attempt to really take stock 10 years, almost 10 years since the last reform of CFS and the last major food crisis. And it was really an attempt to take stock and look at recent developments and see how we're progressing towards the 2030 agenda, especially SDG 2. And as we've heard from other opening remarks, even before the current issue of COVID-19, the report really spells out that we are not on track to reach the agenda of 2030, and business as usual will not be enough. We need a transformative change to our food system. The report, I should point out that obviously the overarching conceptual framing of the report is to prioritize the right of food. The 4 main sections. I think has been mentioned before, we are suggesting an update to conceptual and policy frameworks to add agency and sustainability, and Jennifer will take you through that, why that we feel this is very important. There's a really, I think, quite an excellent, quite a sobering as well though, section on current trends, challenges, but also potential opportunities. We talk about, the report talks about policy directions and then conclusions and recommendations. And there are 4 main policy areas, and they describe the need for a transformative change. They talk about, the first area is a move from a focus just on production, really towards a radical transformation of the food system as a whole. We need to move away from viewing food security just in terms of hunger. We need to look at food and nutrition as both in terms of hunger and undernutrition, and not just have a focus on hunger and malnutrition of all of its forms. We need to move away from viewing food security and nutrition as a sectoral issue. Certainly the issues we've seen with COVID-19 have taught us that when formulating health policy to stem the spread of COVID-19, it's also crucial to consider agricultural and food policy. So really there's a need to look at cross-sectoral aspects. And finally, there's a need, we need to have a way, we need to be focusing not on, have in mind that there's contextual specific policies, and there will be a need, to have that when we're setting policies. So this is a theory of change that we're presenting in the report, and it really, I think, shifts, catalyze changes in policy norms to better achieve sustainable development goals. The last area of recommendation is in enablers, and I think some of the opening remarks have already hinted to this. We need to, move towards the ability to monitor better changes to the food system. We need modeling systems to be able to foresight and predict likely changes there, and also monitoring. Very key that we monitor the situation there. So I'm now going to, and as we've heard with COVID-19, at March, we did the issues paper. We've taken the principles of the report, the 4 policy shifts. We've updated the issues paper within the report with respect to COVID-19. And finally, Tanawat, I'd just like to acknowledge that, HLP is committed to work very closely with the Food Systems Summit, and then to make sure that we obviously use the unique setup of CFS in its inclusive system to look at policy changes there. As you said, this has been a critically difficult time for HLP and all of us in virtual settings. So I do want to acknowledge both the HLP current members and previous members for their contribution, and also the work of the Secretariat during this time. Thank you, Tanua.
Thank you very much, Martin, and also all the teams of the expert of HLPE for your great contribution and support. And all of you bring science and also policy interface to meet here at CFS. Now I would like to invite Dr. Jennifer Clapp, who is the lead author of this report, to present the CFS HLPE Global Narrative Report toward 2030. Unfortunately, Jennifer's also now is too early in the US and she cannot, but anyway, we will have her video presentations to bring you through the details of the global narrative toward 2030. I think now, I hope that the video is ready. Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Clapp, and I'm the team lead on the 15th report of the high-level panel of experts on food security and nutrition. The report is entitled Food Security and Nutrition, Building a Global Narrative Towards 2030. I'm happy to be here today to present the highlights from this report. First, I want to say a bit about the request from the Committee on World Food Security for this report. The HLPE was asked to outline, in a forward-looking perspective, a global narrative on food security and nutrition that draws on previous HLPE publications and considers recent developments in order to provide strategic guidance towards the achievement of the 2030 Agenda, especially SDG 2. Building on this request, the report draws ideas from the scientific literature to provide guidance on how to shift policy norms in a way that can better enable us to achieve SDG 2. The significance and timing of this report are critical. 2030 is only 9 years away, but progress on SDG 2 is highly uneven. And as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic is having a major impact on food security and food systems around the world, and in many ways is undermining progress towards SDG 2. The UN Food Systems Summit, which is scheduled for later this year, provides an important moment to pause and reflect on how to improve the performance of food systems to deliver on key goals of ending hunger and promoting sustainability. The report unfolds in 4 major sections. First, updating conceptual and policy frameworks. Second, current trends, challenges, and potential opportunities in food systems. Third, potential policy directions. And finally, conclusions and recommendations. I'll use this outline to frame my comments on the report today. First, updating conceptual and policy frameworks. The key message of this part of the report is that there's an urgent need to strengthen and consolidate conceptual and policy thinking in 4 interlocking ways. First, the report stresses that food policies must prioritize the right to food. The right to food is a fundamental human right and must be at the center of food security thinking as well as food policy. The report notes that the implementation of this fundamental human right is highly uneven in practice and much work remains to be done. Second, the report emphasizes that we need to widen our understanding of food security, in particular to recognize the centrality of agency and sustainability, along with the 4 other dimensions of availability, access, utilization, and stability. We must also understand that all 6 dimensions are interlinked with one another and all are integral to food security. By agency, we're referring to the capacity of individuals or groups to make their own decisions about what foods they eat, what foods they produce, how that food is produced, processed, and distributed within food systems, as well as their ability to engage in processes that shape food system policies and governance. By sustainability, we're referring to the long-term ability of food systems to provide food security and nutrition in such a way that does not compromise the economic, social, and environmental bases that generate food security and nutrition for future generations. Both agency and sustainability as elements of food security are well established in the scientific literature. Past HLPE reports have also stressed the importance of both of these dimensions of food security, precisely because they help to unpack why progress on meeting SDG 2 has been so uneven. Society's most vulnerable and marginalized groups often lack agency, and these are the very people who are most at risk with respect to food security. And unless food systems become more sustainable, they will ultimately fail to provide food security for all into the long future. All 6 of these dimensions of food security are already implied in the current definition of the term, and they are also implied in conceptual and legal understandings of the right to food. The most commonly referenced definition of food security, for example, from the 1996 World Food Summit, which was updated in 2001, is that food security is a situation that exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious foods that meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. As you can see, all 6 dimensions of food security that we highlight in the report are implied within this current definition. Third, the report stresses the importance of adopting a sustainable food systems framework for both the analysis of problems within food systems as well as the articulation of policies. It builds on the food system framework outlined in the 2017 HLPE report on nutrition in food systems and the wider food systems literature. The report stresses that a sustainable food system approach is important because it enables greater recognition of the complexity of food system processes, from production through to consumption, in relation to other systems as well as drivers of food system change, and how these different components link up with the 6 dimensions of food security and ultimately with the right to food. Fourth, the report calls for the embrace of 4 critical policy shifts that need to occur to achieve more sustainable food systems. These shifts are, first, a shift away from a model focused exclusively on food production at all costs to one that recognizes the need for a radical transformation of food systems as a whole, from production through to consumption, and focuses on the quality of relationships within those food systems rather than just production. Second, a shift away from viewing food security and nutrition as a sectoral issue only relating to food and agriculture, to viewing food security and nutrition as deeply interconnected with other systems and other sectors, such as ecological systems, health systems, and economic systems. The COVID-19 pandemic has clearly illustrated the need for this intersystem viewpoint. Third, it calls for a shift away from an exclusive focus on hunger and undernutrition in food policy to focus on wider issues such as hunger and malnutrition in all its forms, including micronutrient deficiencies, overweight, and obesity. And fourth, it calls for a shift away from focusing on finding universal solutions at the global scale to the development of context-specific policies that respond to local conditions and incorporate local knowledges. All of these conceptual points come together in the report's theory of change, where we make the case that ideas must shift in order to catalyze changes in policy norms to better situate us to achieve the SDGs, especially SDG 2. In other words, we see the 4 policy shifts along with some enabling conditions of better governance and research agenda, build sustainable food systems that can support all 6 dimensions of food security, which is necessary if we want to achieve the SDGs. The next section of the report on current trends, challenges, and potential opportunities in food systems provides a comprehensive review and analysis of the main trends affecting both outcomes and drivers of food system change. The key message here is that the global community is falling short on Agenda 2030 targets, especially SDG 2. We are all familiar with these statistics, but they bear repeating because addressing them remains so urgent. Over 2 billion people currently face moderate or severe food insecurity. 1.9 billion adults are overweight, and about 650 million people are obese. 1.5 billion people suffer from one or more forms of micronutrient deficiency, and there's a highly uneven quality in food environments in different locations around the world. Food system livelihoods remain precarious, especially for small-scale producers. And food systems have crossed the lines of several of the proposed planetary boundaries that have established a safe operating space for humanity to ensure sustainability. And the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all of these trends in ways that have undermined food security and weakened food systems. The report also outlines the many drivers of change in food systems that have important relevance for food security and nutrition. These drivers present many challenges, and in some cases opportunities, for achieving sustainable food systems. The report provides an overview of the main drivers of change, from biophysical and environmental, to technological, to economic and market, to political and institutional, to sociocultural, and finally demographic drivers of change. All of these drivers interact with each other in complex ways and underline the need for a food systems approach that incorporates these dynamics. With respect to potential policy directions, the report focuses on the 4 critical policy shifts we identified in the first part of the report and stresses their role in transitioning to more sustainable food systems that support all 6 dimensions of food security. The report outlines examples of where adopting these shifts can help to mitigate the challenges and create openings for opportunities to build more sustainable food systems. The report also argues for these shifts to be taken together in a coherent policy framework. These policy shifts, along with the theory of change presented in the report, inform the report's recommendations. I'll go through these categories of recommendations in the following slides. To begin, a bold transformation of food systems is needed to focus on the quality of food systems in multiple dimensions and not just tinkering around the edges. This includes, for example, upholding the right to food in ways that empower the most vulnerable and marginalized food system actors to improve their agency. It also calls for promoting regenerative food production practices, such as agroecology, for example, to diversify food production and improve sustainability. And it also includes supporting the development of diverse distribution networks, such as territorial markets, to diversify food distribution to improve food system resilience, especially in the face of shocks, as we've seen with the case of COVID-19. Second, food security and nutrition policy must also appreciate the complexities of food systems and their interactions with other systems. Specifically, to improve coordination across systems and sectors, such as policies that ensure economic systems and health systems work in ways that support food systems. It also calls for us to address challenges at the intersection of ecosystems and food systems, which is especially relevant in the context of a global climate crisis. And it also calls for us to build on lessons from crises, such as the COVID-19, to build more resilient food systems. Third, food security and nutrition policy must support healthy and sustainable food choices for all to address all forms of malnutrition in ways that uphold the right to food and support agency and sustainability along with the other dimensions of food security. This includes measures to support basic entitlements and to improve food environments and ensure access to fresh, local fruits and vegetables. It also calls for addressing all forms of malnutrition, including hunger, obesity, and overweight, as well as micronutrient deficiencies, especially for the most marginalized and vulnerable populations. Fourth, food security and nutrition policy must take local conditions and knowledge into account and develop diverse policy solutions. This includes, for example, tackling the distinct challenges that arise in diverse types of rural and urban contexts, as well as addressing the unique challenges posed by conflict situations. And finally, the report also stresses the importance of enabling conditions that help facilitate these policy shifts. This includes, for example, effective governance at all scales, which should include transparency, participation, and representation of all stakeholders, especially including vulnerable populations and groups. It also highlights a special role for the Committee on World Food Security as a coordinating body at the international level, as well as the prioritization of public policies that embrace the shifts that we call for in this report. The report also outlines the need for a robust research agenda on a wide range of food security and nutrition issues, including emerging crises such as the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as their impact on the most marginalized and vulnerable people. In sum, there are 3 big takeaways from this report. First, a bold and wholesale transformation of food systems is needed. Second, agency and sustainability are key dimensions of food security, and all 6 dimensions of food security are key to upholding the right to food. And finally, critical policy shifts are needed to support sustainable food systems to bring about new policy norms to improve our prospects for meeting SDG 2. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yep. Thank you very much, Jennifer, and also the whole team of high-level panel of experts to put all evidence and also science and knowledge together and present to us today. I have been informed that Jennifer Clapp, she is with us now. before we move to the next agenda, we move to the delegations statement. I would like to ask Jennifer if you can have a short, brief talk with the committee. Jennifer?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to use the presentation that was pre-recorded because it's very early in the morning for me. But I did want to take just one moment to thank the project team, because the Global Narrative Report is a little bit different from the other HLPE products in that it's a synthetic report that was written by the committee itself. So we had a small project team, but the entire HLPE contributed. And I wanted to acknowledge the input that we received from the public consultation, where we had hundreds of pages of feedback from people who engaged with the report, as well as a number of scientific peer reviewers. And so a lot of effort went into the report, and I just wanted to thank everyone for their insights. And I also just briefly wanted to clarify that in what we were asked to do in terms of writing this report was especially to write it from the perspective of those most affected by food insecurity, and in particular, small-scale producers, who are often those facing food insecurity the most. So that, just to explain, the examples that we cover in the report are especially looking to understand these issues from the perspective of those most affected. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jennifer. As you mentioned, that is a teamwork, and also it's a work of a lot of support from the members of the HLPE. That 15 of you are here. I saw you on the screen, and also others, other members of the project team as well. Thank you very much. Let us move to the delegation statement, for which our time is very crucial and limited. Please use the raise hand functions to request the floor, so the secretary can compile all the list of the speakers, and speaking time will be limited to 3 minutes, and with maximum of 5 minutes for ministers, ministers, delegates speaking, for regional group, and for civil societies and private mechanisms. When 1 minute remains of speaking times, I will make a warning to alert the speakers, and also you will see a timer, the clock on the screen as well. Please respect your colleagues and remain within the allocated times. Let me also remind you of the decisions taken by the CFS Bureau about how this session will be captured in the CFS 47 final report. For session 2, there is a short draft conclusion, which is a formal session document which will be part of the final report. Regarding delegate statements on the HLPE report number 15, this will be addressed in the rapporteur summary, which will be appended to the CFS 47 final report as an annex. And also we have Mr. Martin Fleck, who has volunteered to serve as the rapporteur of this item. Martin is serving as deputy to the special envoy of the UN Food System Summit, Dr. Agnes Calibarta. Before, Martin Fleck was a senior director for policies and program coordination at UNFCCC. And before, he was also director at FAO for climate, energies and tenor. Martin, I would like to give the floor for a short remark before we start the national or delegate statements. Martin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, distinguished delegates, heads of Rome-based UN organizations, for the opportunity to serve as rapporteur. This will be a very appreciated listening and learning exercise for me, also on behalf of the entire team of the UN Food Systems Summit. Let me congratulate the high-level panel on experts and the project team, Martin Cole, Jennifer Clapp, on this excellent piece of work, and it really resonates so strongly with what we are trying to achieve with the Food Systems Summit. The very point of a system summit is breaking the silos, bringing the communities together, work on policy coherence, and also working on the sustainability aspect, because development and environment are too often seen as isolated agenda items. But between the two items, right in the middle, sits food systems. And food systems, as development, as environment, are fundamental for a whole range of basic human rights. And that has to orient all of our work. When the SDGs say leaving no one behind, then it's really in food systems where this yardstick has to be applied. And so I'm looking forward to learning from you, to listening to the country's comments on your great piece of work, and hopefully to bring it together in a very satisfying way for all of you. Thank you again, and back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin, for your our statement, and also for your help to support us as the rapporteur of this morning session. And perhaps we will continue the delegate statement in the afternoon on Tuesday as well. Now I would like to give the floor to Ukraine, please.
Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you. I have a pleasure and glad to have remarks here, and thank you for also helping us join the committee. Ukraine attempts to make its contribution to achieving sustainable development goal 2, both domestically and globally. Ukraine ensures availability of all types of food for domestic consumption and actively supplies agricultural products and food products to foreign markets as well. Ukraine operates in the world food market transparently and predictably, and is part of the global system of world food stocks as well. One of key achievements for the pandemic era is that Ukraine avoided temptation to impose restrictions on exports of basic products. Otherwise, Ukraine managed to ensure as much export as it was possible. Ukraine continues to do so this marketing year, despite lesser yield due to drought last year. An important aspect of food security is the availability and accessibility of food of appropriate quality to every Ukrainian consumers. And currently, government of Ukraine works on food security strategy for the period for up to 2026. Thus, the CFS voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition and building a global narrative towards 2030 are so important for Ukraine and for internal domestic policy. The implementation of the strategy will make it possible to ensure all the goals of creation of sustainable food systems. Despite the fact that Ukraine produces about 90% of food products domestically, we emphasize the importance of simplifying international trade procedures, preventing the creation of new trade barriers, and implementing food nationalism policy for any reason. The problems Ukraine face are following. The key one is the tendency to reduce the number of animals, and as a result, reduce of production of meat and dairy products. On the positive side, Ukrainian livestock producers are one of the significant players in the international honey and chicken market, for example. Another issue for us is the integration of small producers into world food chain, since almost half of livestock and fruit and vegetable products are produced by households and small farms. As well, the share of organic vegetable segment in Ukraine is very insignificant and does not fully meet even country's domestic needs, despite its continuing growth during last several years. Finally, the nutrition is becoming more and more important policy in Ukraine. Last year, Ukraine initiated complex transformation of school nutrition, which will improve diet for future generations of Ukraine. At the global level, climate change is one of the greatest threats to humanity, preventing countries from ensuring agri-environmental and food security, reducing poverty and achieving sustainable rural development. Agriculture suffers the greatest losses due to crop destruction and increased greenhouse emissions. This threatens the livelihoods of millions of people. This is a challenge for the domestic agricultural sector. Last year, drought was a clear signal. Drought in Ukraine was a clear signal of influence of climate change, not only on domestic consumptions, but on global supply chain as well. So Ukraine looks for fruitful cooperation within the committee and wants to also to have it input into achieving global goals. So thank you for invitation and start of operation of Ukraine within the committee.
Okay.
Thank you, Tavanak.
Thank you very much, Minister. You spent time perfectly, almost 5 minutes. Thank you. Now I move to Rwanda. I'm not sure that Minister is there. Rwanda. Okay, otherwise I move to Spain, please. Next, Spain.
Sí, muchas gracias y muchas gracias por organizar esta reunión. El informe del 2020 sobre el estado de la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición en el mundo muestra una tendencia ascendente en el número de personas afectadas por la inseguridad alimentaria grave, lo que nos aleja de lograr el objetivo del hambre cero para 2030. A los problemas ya persistentes se añade el impacto causado por la COVID-19, que está deteriorando el estado nutricional de los grupos de población más vulnerables. Ello nos coloca al borde de una crisis alimentaria sin precedentes. La pandemia que vivimos ha puesto en evidencia las debilidades de los sistemas alimentarios globales y la urgente necesidad de redoblar los esfuerzos para impulsar una transformación hacia modelos cada vez más sostenibles y resilientes e inspirados en el derecho a la alimentación. Numerosos informes han señalado que intervenciones a favor de sistemas sostenibles de producción de alimentos consiguen un efecto palanca y multiplicador en la consecución de todos los ODS. Esta es la transformación que necesitamos para alcanzar los ODS a tiempo y prevenir futuras crisis alimentarias y sanitarias. Y esta es la transformación por la que aboga la Cumbre sobre Sistemas Alimentarios que el Secretario General ha convocado para el 2021. Una cumbre que apuesta por construir sistemas saludables, sostenibles e inclusivos que permitan a las personas y al planeta prosperar. Para ello debemos promover actuaciones dirigidas a incentivar las inversiones en los territorios rurales que construyan un tejido social, sociocultural y económico. Es fundamental apoyar a los pequeños agricultores y a la agricultura familiar, a los jóvenes agricultores y empoderar a la mujer rural por su papel clave en la seguridad alimentaria. Se ha de promocionar la agroecología y los enfoques innovadores, así como una agricultura sostenible que cuide el entorno y el medio ambiente con un enfoque One Health para el manejo sostenible de los territorios como mejor mecanismo de protección para la prevención de la zoonosis. Y ante la situación de crisis que vivimos, se han de desplegar todas las redes de protección social y hacer cumplir las leyes y estándares de seguridad de los trabajadores. La aprobación de las directrices voluntarias sobre los sistemas alimentarios y la nutrición es un paso fundamental para esta transformación. Quiero hacer un reconocimiento al indudable valor añadido que el CSA posee como plataforma inclusiva con representación efectiva de todos los actores. Para alcanzar el necesario consenso es vital mantener a todos ellos, incluida la sociedad civil, en la mesa de negociaciones. Y el CSA debe seguir promoviendo políticas basadas en la evidencia científica y en el pleno respeto del sistema jurídico internacional. Así, el Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria está llamado a jugar un papel de liderazgo en la gobernanza global a favor de la seguridad alimentaria y por ello en la preparación de la cumbre sobre sistemas alimentarios, particularmente la respuesta normativa global a la COVID-19. Quiero finalizar mi intervención haciendo una mención a los próximos trabajos del CSA para la elaboración de las recomendaciones sobre políticas relativas a los enfoques agroecológicos y otros enfoques innovadores y a las directrices voluntarias sobre la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de la mujer en el contexto de la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición, que España ha impulsado y apoyado firmemente. No lograremos acabar con el hambre en el mundo si no alcanzamos la igualdad de género y el empoderamiento de mujeres y niñas. Ambos trabajos contribuirán de manera decisiva a la consecución de los objetivos de la Agenda 2030. Ante el reto en el que nos encontramos, debemos redoblar nuestros esfuerzos para poder garantizar la seguridad alimentaria de millones de personas y cambiar la tendencia hacia el logro del ODS 2. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your remark. Now I give the floor to Minister of UAE, please.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for your time today, and it is a pleasure to be able to address you today at the 47th CFS It is unfortunate that we cannot meet physically, but nonetheless, our work must go on, and thanks to technology, it can. It's been just 5 years from the establishment of the agenda, and we are now facing a heavy setback to our efforts at meeting what was already a difficult target. And as His Excellency David Beasley already elaborated, the facts and numbers, it really is shocking and alarming. So while the pandemic has imposed challenges, it has also brought positive change into the mindsets of people. Believe me, COVID-19 has made everyone look at the subject of food security very differently than before, and has brought food security to the center of attention of many governments. Even here in the UAE, many may not have understood the purpose of why a minister should be in charge of food security, but through the last months have highly appreciated why the leaders made this file a national priority a few years ago. So it is vital we make use of this mindset globally to accelerate our efforts. As His Excellency Gilbert Hudago mentioned, it's a wake-up call for all of us. So speaking as the representative of a nation that finds it challenging to grow crops at scale due to lack of arable land and being a water-scarce country, the United Arab Emirates gained its food security by becoming a hub for global food trade. But technologies and seed development has advanced over the years, especially in the area of controlled environment agriculture, whereby crops can now be grown at scale with very little water and no arable land, and also at any climate. This, ladies and gentlemen, has become a game changer for us and many other countries with similar challenges, and has made us rethink our plans in the domain of food security. This has led us to develop the National Food Security Strategy of the UAE 2051 with nearly 40 programs and 17 KPIs. And we have really, as Martin and Jennifer mentioned, tried to take a holistic approach, making sure we're working with all the sectors to drive and implement the strategy. Among the many efforts that the UAE has taken, I would like to shed light on a concise, let's say, systematic change that we did. So a cabinet decision was made in 2020 amid the pandemic to accelerate the adoption of ag tech in the UAE. So this decision was formed and a team was set forth. I was honored to head the team, basically to transform the agricultural sector towards the advancement of modern tech-based sector that harnesses the power of technology to achieve sustainable food production and transition to more sustainable food systems. This was also made to attract women and youth into this vital sector. So the team was made up of public and private sector representatives, research and development, international organizations, as well as representatives from the farming industry in the UAE. And I'm proud to say in just under 6 months, we were able to put together a roadmap to foster the adoption of CEAs in the country. And we developed a list of key interventions, not just at production, but along the whole food supply chain. These interventions have now been raised to the cabinet. And basically, I wanted to shed light on this to show that this is an example of political will or agency and working together with all stakeholders as a team to really accelerate efforts on this topic. And this is what we urge countries to do because we don't have time to lose. It's an example of a systematic change, as mentioned by Her Excellency Agnes Calibarta, and as His Excellency Dr. Dong Yu mentioned, it's an example of a concrete action. So our national efforts complement the HLPE 15 report. We really want to congratulate the CFS team in putting this great report together. We basically want to say, friends of the food security family, collaboration and partnership is essential at this time, and we, the UAE, are ready to share our knowledge and experience with all of you to create a future that is food secure for all. So we are committed, and we thank the CFS for hosting this important event, and thank you all for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ministers, for your statement and support to CFS. On my list, we will move to the ministers from Panama, followed by ministers of Belgium. Panama, please. Okay, he's not here yet. I will move to the ministers of Belgium, please.
Thank you very
Belgium?
much.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be here today with you to discuss a topic that concerns us all, food security and nutrition. Ongoing conflict and climate change in combination with COVID-19 has pushed millions of people into extreme poverty and food insecurity. An uncertainty about what is a fundamental right for all, food. Food to live, and let's face it, eradication hunger is a promise we have been trying to keep since ages. Still, we are not on track to realize it. Still, too many people do not have access to food, especially healthy food. Even before the pandemic, 690 million people were undernourished. COVID may add between 83 and 132 million people. These numbers are unacceptable. However, they should not discourage us. On the contrary, they should push us to take action, to build back better. I am proud to say that the Belgian Development Corporation will prioritize food security and the cooperation with our partners countries. Belgium is also funding the flexible multi-partner mechanism of the FIO and is a top donor of both CFRA funds and the WFP immediate response account. We call upon others to do the same. With 9 more years to go towards the Agenda 2030, Belgium is convinced that 3 observations remain particularly relevant if we truly want to accelerate progress on SDG 2. First of all, to end hunger, we do not only need more investment, we also need better investment. Research and innovations are needed to make our food system ready for the future and to inform our policies. Belgium values the work of CFS in promoting policy-based and science on evidence. And we support the spreading, use and application of all the CFS products and recommendations at all levels. This will help us to maximize the impact of our actions, to make real changes. I wish you every success in the approval of the CFS voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition later this year. Secondly, the Belgian Development Corporation fosters a transformation to more sustainable food systems. We need a food system that provides sufficient nutrition, food for all, without further damaging our planet, and in a way that our grandchildren will still be able to feed themselves. We can transform value chains by promoting more sustainable practices such as agroecology. We value in particular the ongoing policy conferences process on agroecological and other innovative approaches and look forward to the adoption of the policy recommendation. The UN Food Systems Summit will serve as a critical contribution to the decade of action, to deliver the 2030 agenda and to deliver progress on all 70 SDGs. A bottom-up and inclusive approach is required. The engagement of civil society is crucial, and the voices of the farmers producing our food should be heard. Thirdly, Belgium is also committed to make food system more inclusive and to address inequality. It is unequal access to food rather than insufficient global production that is leaving people hungry. In all regions of the world, women are more likely to be food insecure than men. Advancing gender equality and women's and girls' empowerment is essential for ensuring food security and nutrition for all. To build a world free from hunger, we must support them and strengthen their livelihoods. Belgium emphasizes the critical importance of providing predictable and reliable access to social protection programs and health protection. So to conclude, Belgium stands firm in our ambition to accelerate progress on SDG 2. I will continue to count on you, but you can also count on me. To make progress, that is my engagement. That is the engagement of the Belgian government. And we will continue our commitment to the CFS. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Excellencies, for your commitment and also the support of the government of Belgium. Next, I will ask for the ministers of Mongolia, followed by Costa Rica and Portugal. I give the floor to Mongolia, please. Mongolia, you are here. I check. Mongolia is okay. He's not here. Okay, now I move to our Minister of Costa Rica, please. He's not here.
Sorry, Chair, is not a minister. Is not a minister declaration, so I can wait for the proper turn.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next on my list is Portugal, and then followed by Ivory Coast. Portugal.
Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair, Excellencies, colleagues. I am honored to speak on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. Since its reform in 2009, the HLPE has contributed to significantly improving the international community's knowledge on hunger and malnutrition. Its inclusive approach, based on a transdisciplinary dialogue between experts and a wide range of stakeholders, ensures wide recognition of its products while guaranteeing their independence. Today, the HLPE is a unique instrument for making appropriate, comprehensive, science and evidence-based analysis to help countries and other relevant stakeholders to take the best decisions to combat food insecurity and malnutrition in all its forms and to move towards sustainable and resilient food systems. We welcome the HLPE's report, Food Security and Malnutrition, Building a Global Narrative Towards 2030, which clearly highlights the urgency of engaging food systems in in-depth transformation. The current COVID-19 pandemic has confirmed the urgent need to transform food systems to make them sustainable and resilient and achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As we have entered in the last decade before 2030, the report rightly highlights the need to implement effective policies to achieve the SDGs while keeping in mind the strong interrelations between SDG 2 and the rest of 2030 Agenda. For these reasons, we support the priority given to sustainable agricultural practices such as agroecology, sustainable intensification, and climate-smart agriculture. And we agree with the need to have a broader approach to hunger and malnutrition in its all forms, as well as science and evidence-based policy recommendations. We thus strongly appreciate the prospective dimension of this report. We note the HLPE's proposal to integrate the dimensions of sustainability and agency stakeholders' participation into the conceptual framework of food security, while recognizing the importance of food systems to become more sustainable and resilient to achieve food security and nutrition for all us at all times. We continue to consider at this stage the generally accepted definition of food security based on the four dimensions of availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability as a practical and workable concept, and strengthen established concepts as the right to food and sustainability. We need to focus on action now by all stakeholders. In this context, the UN Food Systems Summit represents a great opportunity to accelerate the transformation to sustainable and resilient food systems. The Committee on World Food Security and the HLPE are unique and inclusive instruments to provide recognizing expertise. The HLPE reports provide key insights for the Food Systems Summit. We call on CFS as a unique multi-stakeholder platform and its HLPE to play a key role in the preparation and follow-up actions of the Food Systems Summit. In this regard, the Food Systems Summit Secretariat, and in particular the Science Group, could further build on the widely recognized expertise of the HLPE. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Excellency, for giving us the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Excellency, for your remark. Now, on my list, the Minister of Nicaragua, Zambia, and followed by Panama. I start with Nicaragua, please. Okay, I think he's not here yet. I move to Zambia, please. Minister from Zambia. Zambia? Okay. Otherwise, I move to Panama. Minister from.
Oh, sorry, Chair. The minister is not here for Zambia.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for your information. Now we move to Panama. Minister is here from my list. If not, we can move to then to Minister of Guatemala. Guatemala? None. Okay, next, Secretary of Bangladesh, please.
Thank you. Respected Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and Assalamu alaikum. I have the honor to present the Bangladesh country statement and provide our contribution to the agenda of food security and nutrition, building a global narrative towards 2030. Right after the independence, the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, took strong steps to ensure the overall development of agriculture and food security in Bangladesh in the light of the constitutional commitment. With that commitment, Bangladesh has made sustainable improvements in food security and nutritional status in the current decades, where the growth rate of food production is higher than the rate of population growth. Bangladesh has made significant strides towards meeting many of the targets of SDGs amidst resource constraints. A robust economic growth has been accompanied by corresponding improvements in important social indicators. The inclusive growth has resulted in impressive poverty reduction from 31.5% in 2010 to 20.5% in 2019. Child undernutrition has continued to reduce with the prevalence of stunting falling to 28% in 2019, which makes the 25% target by 2025 of the 8th five-year plan. This prevalence of wasting dropped to 8.4% in 2018, which is aligned with the second National Plan of Action for Nutrition 2025 target. However, it is likely that COVID-19 might have reversed the gains made in nutrition improvement. Respected participants, over the last 2 decades, Bangladesh has been expanding and strengthening a large agriculture diversification program, including fisheries and livestock, which are the primary source of all nutrition to provide safe and diversified diets to all. Besides this, a food system approach is adopted across rural and urban areas with integrated interventions across all sectors. Tackling hidden hunger or micronutrient malnutrition is a challenge ahead to achieving healthy and sustainable diets and enhancing the delivery on nutrition outcomes among households, mothers, young children, and communities. To this end, diversity of diets among women and adolescent girls and infant and young children feeding practices requires specific attention. Policy guidance tools such as the Food-Based Dietary Guidelines 2020 have been updated and are being launched this year for nationwide dissemination to enable people to demand healthy diets for all ages. The country's 8th five-year plan has harmonized the Sustainable Development Goals, taking into consideration its alignment with the priority areas of national plans. It is being implemented for the period of 2021 to 2025 with an emphasis on promoting prosperity and fostering inclusiveness. It focuses on a pro growth strategy. Bangladesh aims to have 8.5% GDP growth by 2025. There are also targets for many indicators, including inflation, public and private investment, employment, poverty reduction, revenue mobilization, allocation for annual development plan, and sectoral performances, including education and health. We are expected to face several challenges, specifically related to COVID-19 pandemic, graduation from the least developed countries category, and climate change vulnerability. In August 2020, Bangladesh demonstrated its renewed interest in ending hunger and achieving food and nutrition security for all by formulating National Food and Nutrition Security Policy 2020 and is now elaborating its plan of action to implement the policy interventions. In conclusion, I would like to give my heartiest thanks to all participants of this virtual session and the secretaries of CFS and FAO to organize this important event. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your remark. Now I move to on my list of the ministers, Zambia, and then followed by France, Turkmenistan, and Sweden. I start with Zambia, please.
Thank you so much. Zambia, the minister is not here, so it can pass.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Now I move to the next on my list is France, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ce n'est pas le ministre, je ferai la déclaration. Je ne sais pas si vous voulez que j'attende ou si je la fais maintenant.
Perhaps you can deliver later on, according to the hand is raised hand that I see. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Next, I will ask for the ministers of Turkmenistan, followed by State Secretary of Sweden. Okay, otherwise I don't see. Okay, otherwise I will read. I call the list of the members. I will start with Turkey, please. Turkey, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My intervention is very brief. Turkey welcomes food security and nutrition policies to support shifting and accelerating actions to address the impacts of climate change, natural resource degradation, and natural disasters on food systems. As well stressed in the high-level panel of experts report, land degradation, especially on dry lands, worsen the food security situation with accelerating the effect of climate change and resulting social hazards. We would like to highlight that when it comes to dry lands, desertification should also be referred in the report, since they are the most fragile ecosystems, considering the malnutrition statistics of the dryland countries. Recommended actions in the report are clearly briefing what should be done immediately. Recognizing the drought in addition to the increased water scarcity is needed in terms of aligning the policies for better water management in agriculture and food systems. Developing and supporting more robust climate finance mechanisms for small-scale food producers is highly critical for the sustainability of the food chains. In addition to the farmers, livestock keepers, fishers, food processors, forest villagers are also a member of this group who are very fragile towards social economic shifts with very low income. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Turkey. Now I ask for State Secretary of Sweden. I think he's here already. Please.
I am here. Thank you, Chair. And Excellencies, it's a pleasure for me to be here today. I'd like to begin by reading a quote by the late Swedish Prime Minister, Olof Palme, from his speech at FAO in 1983. And he said then, words and slogans, however well formulated, will not aid the word from hunger. They cannot feed a starving child. What we can do and do now is to start the practical work for food reforms. On this, all nations should be able to cooperate. And behind this endeavor lies a feeling of responsibility and involvement, end quote. Palmer's words are no less true today than in 1983, as we undoubtedly continue to face great challenges. In addition to wars and conflict, a process of ever faster climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic presents us with a test of huge proportions. This is the time for us to step up. We have the knowledge and means, but we need political will to shift crisis to opportunity. I therefore welcome the report on building a global narrative towards 2030 because it provides us with several important stepping stones for such a joint endeavor. And as Palmer said, on this, all nations should be able to cooperate. I call on all of us to focus on what we can do together. The upcoming Food System Summit is such an event. It's not an endpoint, but it's a stepping point for transformation. In particular, I welcome the contribution of the CFS voluntary guidelines for food systems and nutrition to the summit. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight the importance of the voluntary guidelines for gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security. I welcome the terms of reference, and I look forward to the development of the guidelines in the coming year. My warmest thanks to you, and warmest thanks to our fellow Nordic countries, Finland, for shouldering the responsibility of chairing this work. Sweden has contributed financially to the realization of this work stream, and we stand ready to contribute with our expertise as well. So thank you for now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Secretary, for your remark. If each delegations still have, or I miss any ministers, your delegation can contact the CFS secretary, and then we can convene the minister's statement afterwards in the afternoon, or you can send to the chat box. Now we can start with US, followed by Germany, and then Israel. US, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Chair, Excellencies, colleagues, given the urgency of the climate crisis and growing world population that will reach nearly 10 billion people by 2050, the global community needs to focus on more sustainable approaches to food systems. We must work together to end hunger and malnutrition in an increasingly complex world, facing multiple serious challenges. We've seen how COVID-19 has created a renewed urgency around the importance of strengthening resilience across food systems. By maintaining this focus and working in partnership across sectors and with a diverse set of stakeholders, we can drive lasting change. 2020 marked the 10-year anniversary of the United States Global Food Security Initiative, which we call Feed the Future. Feed the Future itself was born out of a food crisis. In 2007, 2008, we had the food price crisis. The effects of that reverberated around the world and pushed millions of people into hunger, causing instability and unrest. So while we commemorated the progress made toward greater food security and nutrition in vulnerable communities around the world, we are also building on this foundation, adapting our programs, and rededicating ourselves to the work ahead. The global community must step up to help communities deal with current shocks, mitigate long-term harm, and prevent backsliding on years of development and economic gains. We need to work together to expand data-backed, scientifically proven options to empower farmers, communities, and nations. We must acknowledge the diversity of context-specific agricultural approaches in building more sustainable food systems and in accelerating progress toward ending hunger. We cannot afford to waste any time. The challenges ahead are real and the stakes are high. The United States acknowledges the work of the high-level panel of experts in producing this report and its recommendations on such a complex issue. We commend the report's recognition that more must be done to meet the goals of the 2030 Agenda, especially SDG 2. However, we have two specific concerns with this report in terms of both technical substance and organizational mandates. First, specifically, we cannot support the HLPE report's recommendation to make CFS policy guidance legally binding. Voluntary uptake is at the heart of all CFS policy documents, which are negotiated and interpreted with that understanding that member states can choose to adopt the recommendations and guidelines which are most relevant for them. We also have concerns related to trade. One recommendation calls for member states to ensure food trade is quote unquote equitable and fair for countries that depend on food imports, for agricultural exporting countries, for producers, including smallholders, and for consumers. The United States believes that CFS is not the appropriate forum to discuss trade and that CFS should not offer policy guidance that could contradict WTO rules and procedures. In order to achieve the SDGs, specifically SDG 2, which calls for eliminating hunger worldwide, farmers need access to modern agricultural tools and technologies in order to produce food with fewer inputs, reduce crop loss, reduce impacts on climate, and ensure safe and affordable food for consumers. The fact is, to achieve true and lasting food security, we need to build and safeguard the entire food ecosystem, the land, local economies, the supply chain, the farmers, and the communities that depend on one another to thrive. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much, US, for your remark. Now I give the floor to Germany, followed by Israel, and then Argentina, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Germany aligns itself with the statement by the European Union and its 27 member states. Germany acknowledges the HLPE's report, Food Security and Nutrition, Building a Global Narrative Towards 2030, and we welcome that the report highlights the importance of the interconnection between different systems and sectors, as well as their improved coordination. We emphasize that food systems affect all SDGs and encompass crucial entry points for transformative progress across the 2030 agenda. Therefore, we welcome the convening of the UN Food Systems Summit by the UN Secretary General. It will be a crucial stepping stone in achieving sustainable and resilient food systems, contributing to catalytic progress across all SDGs. We consider the summit process as an important driver to raise public awareness of the need for sustainable and resilient food systems, and we welcome its inclusive and multi-sectoral preparation. To this end, we are working together with all sectors and stakeholders and very much welcome the summit's claim to be a people's and solutions summit. Germany is actively engaged in the summit preparatory process. Beyond our financial contribution, we are actively participating in the discussions of the action tracks. Moreover, Germany is part of a Rome-based informal group of friends for the summit that ensures broad consultation with member states and an inclusive dialogue on key priorities. We attach great importance to the Food System Summit dialogues, which offer a formidable platform for wide and inclusive stakeholder engagement. We will most likely also engage in the national dialogues, and we will incorporate their results into our own approaches. We believe it is critical that the Rome-based agencies are involved as key knowledge hubs for the preparation and implementation of the summit, particularly FAO and CFS, and we welcome their close involvement. In this vein, we commend you, the chair of the CFS and the chair of the HLPE, as well as the private sector mechanism PSM, for having accepted the invitation extended by Special Envoy Dr. Calibarta and for actively participating in the process. Having said this, we sincerely hope that the civil society mechanism, the CSM, can also join in and contribute with its very important expertise to the overall success of the process and summit itself. In conclusion, we are sure that the HLPE report will not only be a useful contribution to the discussions on Action Track 1, but to the overall preparation of the summit. The inclusive and multi-sectoral preparation of the Food System Summit, also the close involvement of the HLPE as the science policy interface of the CFS in the area of food security and nutrition are critical to achieve the catalytic transformation we are aiming for. Only by joint efforts and science and evidence-based actions will we be able to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, ambassadors. Before I give the floor to next, it should be Israel. May I give the floor to the ministers of Sudan first, and then I will follow the list. Ministers of Sudan, are you here already? Sudan, please. Okay. Otherwise, I continue the list. Israel, followed by Argentina, please.
Thank you for the floor, Chair. Achieving a world
without hunger and malnutrition within the framework of Sustainable Development Goals must start and end with continuous efforts of all stakeholders to improve and solve the states of food security and nutrition in the world. The challenges we face today with the impact of COVID-19 are significant. COVID-19 will have a global impact on food insecurity, including harmful effect on health, economic, political, and social systems. People in countries that have been quarantined for a long time are gaining weight drastically. A combination of overweight and dramatically reducing the natural foods that include variety of essential nutrition, along with eating processed food and especially ultra-processed food, may cause serious morbidity. We all know that the states of our nutrition and health, mental and physical well-being affects our lives, quality of life, the resiliency of our communities, the productivity of our nations, and the mobility possibility of the new generations. The percentage of global population estimated to be suffering from food insecurity will continue to increase in the coming years. And it is our responsibility to make sure we are working together, sharing best practices, learning from mistakes, and involving our youth in achieving greater results. The engagement and education of youth and their awareness to nutritious food and healthy diets are essential in this process. Education must continue to play an integral role in transferring lives every day. The Israeli mission initiated last year the ISDG, Israel Sustainable Development Goals project, of Israeli youth competition for the best solutions, promoting Agenda 2030 and the SDG. Israeli youth all over Israel already presented their initiative in their schools and regions. Furthermore, the empowerment of women and the global commitment for gender equality are also playing a vital role. It is crucial that all actors, men and women, boys and girls, will take part of this process and understand how fundamental it is for all of them. Being part of the problem, the food industry must also play a role in the solution, beside developing and keeping local agriculture. This is why we truly believe the United Nations Food System Summit plays a crucial role in mediating the public-private partnership between government, consumer, agriculture, the food industry, and more. Our global village must work together to spotlight the need to involve all of us in order to improve the world we live in and its sustainability. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. Now I would like to give the floor to Ministers of Agriculture from Sudan. Minister from Sudan, please. Sudan, Minister from Sudan. I think I got a message that you want to take the floor. Yeah, please.
أنا بدر الدين عطا مصطفى مدير إدارة التعاون الدولي.
We cannot hear you clearly. Can you come close to the microphone, please?
أنا بدر الدين عطا مصطفى مدير إدارة التعاون الدولي. أتحدث نيابة عن الأخ الوزير عبد القادر تركاوي في هذا اللقاء وهذا المؤتمر الهام الذي يعالج أو يناقش قضايا الأمن الغذائي في العالم. فيرسلي السادة المشاركون من الدول المختلفة، السيد الأمين العام لمنظمة الأغذية والزراعة العالمية، يطيب لنا أن نشارك في هذا الاجتماع ونسمن دور منظمة الأغذية والزراعة العالمية في دعم القطاع الزراعي في السودان ومكافحة في دعم القطاع الزراعي في السودان وتأمين والمساهمة في تأمين الغذاء والمساهمة في الارتقاء بالقطاع الزراعي في السودان. كما ننتهز هذه السانحة لنشيد باسم السودان في الجهود المتواصلة للمنظمة لدعم ومساندة السودان في تحقيق الأمن الغذائي والمساهمة في الخروج من الأزمات المتمثلة في السيول والفيضانات التي اجتاحت البلاد خلال هذا الموسم. ولقد أثرت ظاهرة الكورونا، جائحة الكورونا، سلبا على الاقتصاد السوداني، وتلقينا دعومات كبيرة من المنظمات الدولية لتأمين الغذاء، وقد حققنا نجاحا منقطع النظير في تأمين الغذاء رغم الظروف الصعبة والشاقة التي يمر بها الاقتصاد السوداني. ولكننا في السودان نمتلك موارد اقتصادية ضخمة ومهولة، أراضي زراعية شاسعة، وكميات هائلة من المياه التي تؤهلنا لتأمين غذائنا في الداخل وتصدير الغذاء في الخارج. لقد كان السودان عبر تاريخه يؤمن الغذاء للدول المجاورة، ولكن نسبة للظروف السياسية التي صاحبت القطاع الزراعي في السودان نتيجة للنظام الاستبدادي الغاشم الذي انتفض عليه الشعب السوداني وتم تغيير نظام الحكم. نتطلع الآن بعد الانفتاح على العالم الخارجي ورفع العقوبات عن السودان، نتطلع لعون المنظمات العالمية والأجنبية لدعم الاقتصاد السوداني. الاقتصاد السوداني يمكن أن ينطلق بسهولة لو تحصلنا على دعم ومعينات تتمثل في توفير مدخلات الإنتاج والتقنيات الزراعية الحديثة والتمويل لهذا القطاع الضخم، ويسعى السودان أن يؤمن غذاءه ويصدر الفائض إلى دول العالم أجمع. لقد كان السودان منذ القدم دولة مؤمنة تقريبا تأمين غذائي، لم نكن نعاني مطلقا من فجوة غذائية، ولكن نسبة لتدهور الأوضاع السياسية في 30 عاما الماضية حدثت كل هذه الكوارث. نعمل من منظمات المجتمع الدولي وخاصة الفاو في استنفار واستثارة منظمات التمويل الأجنبية في دعم السودان بالتمويل اللازم والمدخلات الزراعية حتى نتمكن من تأمين الغذاء والقضاء على الفقر وتصدير الغذاء لدول العالم الأخرى. أهمية إضافة المؤسسة لمحاور الأمن الغذائي وأهمية تزامن التدخلات الآتية مع لأنها تحل المشاكل المتراكمة التي تؤدي إلى انعدام الأمن الغذائي المزمن، ولا بد من الخروج بتوصيات فعالة لتقوية النظم الغذائية لمجابهة المهددات المتواصلة وتبني القدرة على الصمود المجتمعات في مواجهتها، ولا بد من تطبيق الابتكارات من خلال كل سلسلة الإمدادات. ففي السودان هناك بعض الجهود التنسيقية لحل هذه المشاكل لتطبيق هذه
Excuse me, Excellency, could you please close your... Excellencies.
شكرا جزيلا.
Close your...
أدونا كم 3 دقائق.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to Argentina, please, and then followed by Russian Federation.
Gracias, querido presidente, estimado director general de la FAO, doctor Tu, estimado presidente del FIDA, señor Jumbó, estimado director ejecutivo del PMA, señor Beasley, y estimada enviada especial del secretario general de la ONU, doctora Calibarta. Celebramos la posibilidad de que el plenario del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial pueda volver a reunirse, al menos bajo un formato virtual, tras una etapa marcada por el flagelo del COVID-19 en términos de inseguridad alimentaria, desnutrición, pobreza e inequidades socioeconómicas nos ha hecho retroceder en nuestro esfuerzo por alcanzar los ODS de la Agenda 2030. En este sentido, deseamos agradecer la elaboración del informe del GANESAN, que aborda las contribuciones que a lo largo de los años el panel de alto nivel ha realizado con relación a la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición, y permite por ello desarrollar futuras estrategias sobre la base de las lecciones aprendidas hasta el momento en la materia. Asimismo, destacamos la adecuada mención de los impactos que ha tenido el COVID-19 en las cadenas alimentarias, la salud y los progresos hacia el cumplimiento de los ODS, en especial el 1 y el 2. La pandemia del COVID-19 ha tenido y continuará teniendo consecuencias difíciles de prever, por lo que disponer de más y mejor información es central para tomar las decisiones que resulten adecuadas, aún en un contexto de gran incertidumbre. Sin perjuicio de lo anterior, observamos que el informe reconoce que el concepto de seguridad alimentaria ha evolucionado de manera tal que dos nuevas dimensiones deben ser incluidas en el mismo: la agencia y la sostenibilidad. Si bien a priori no expresamos desacuerdo con los conceptos, es preciso destacar que son términos nuevos y que no han sido debatidos por la membresía, motivo por el cual no llega a comprenderse cabalmente las implicancias que su eventual incorporación generaría o la necesidad de ello. En segundo lugar, presidente, varios apartados del informe recomiendan apoyar transformaciones radicales de los sistemas alimentarios. Sin embargo, el documento también reconoce la gran variedad de sistemas existentes y la complejidad de las relaciones entre estos y otros sistemas y sectores, por lo que para abordar los desafíos que cada uno de los sistemas alimentarios enfrenta, una variedad de opciones es posible. De ahí notamos cierta contradicción entre esta recomendación general y el reconocimiento que no todos los sistemas alimentarios deberían atravesar los mismos procesos de transformación, ajuste, para realizar su aporte al logro de la seguridad alimentaria. En estrecha relación con lo anterior, subrayamos... ¿Sí? ¿Tengo 30 segundos más? Okay. En esta relación con lo anterior, subrayamos la referencia a las transformaciones, cambios radicales de los sistemas alimentarios como condición para el logro de la Agenda 2030. Y como hemos resaltado en otras ocasiones, se debe actuar con prudencia respecto de tales sugerencias, en particular en el contexto del COVID-19 y las consecuencias que ello está trayendo a nuestros países. Por otra parte, en la página 17, párrafo 12, y con esto termino, presidente, el documento señala también que existe una competencia entre la producción agrícola para la alimentación y aquella destinada a la producción de biocombustibles. Creemos que es un asunto sumamente complejo, una competencia muy controvertido a nivel internacional, por lo cual es conveniente no formular generalizaciones. Gracias, presidente, y discúlpeme el tiempo tomado. Gracias.
Russian Federation, followed by Malaysia, please.
Уважаемый господин председатель, уважаемые делегаты, благодарим группу экспертов высокого уровня за подготовку доклада. Отмечаем в целом целостный характер содержащихся в нем рекомендаций о возможных действиях по обеспечению глобальной продовольственной безопасности и питания. Мы обеспокоены ситуацией в осуществлении повестки 2030, особенно в части ЦУР-2, ликвидация голода и всех форм неполноценного питания. Согласны, что меры, предпринимаемые для подавления коронавируса, дают положительный результат. Вместе с тем мы видим и негативное воздействие пандемии на экономики многих стран. Это серьезным образом влияет на продовольственные системы, продовольственную безопасность и питание во всем мире. Особую обеспокоенность вызывает тот факт, что в зоне повышенного риска находятся наиболее уязвимые слои населения и семьи с низкими доходами. В этой связи мы всецело поддерживаем вывод необходимого обеспечения серьезных мер по социальной защите населения. Господин председатель, проблемы продовольственной и пищевой безопасности в их воздействии на здоровье населения носят комплексный, взаимосвязанный и трансграничный характер. Международная координация важна не только для обеспечения слаженной работы глобальной продовольственной системы, но и для повышения стран своих первоочередных суверенных обязательств по обеспечению населения качественным и безопасным продовольствием. В январе 2020 года президент Путин утвердил новую доктрину продовольственной безопасности России, которая ориентирована на предупреждение возможных внутренних и внешних рисков, полное самообеспечение нашей страны основными видами сельскохозяйственной продукции. Россия является одним из крупнейших сельскохозяйственных производителей и участником мировой аграрной торговой системы. При этом в полной мере мы следуем задачам повышения контроля качества и безопасности пищевой продукции. В заключение, уважаемые делегаты, уважаемый господин председатель, мы исходим из того, что сегодняшняя дискуссия будет зафиксирована в отдельном документе в форме резюме председателя. Как уже отмечали ряд делегаций, он не предусматривает его согласование с странами-членами, и мы хотели бы призвать вас точно, но сбалансированно отразить высказанные мнения, четко следуя техническому мандату комитета. Просили бы придерживаться нейтральных формулировок в отношении заведомо неконсенсусных идей и концепций. Полный текст нашего выступления будет направлен электронной почтой в адрес секретариата. Спасибо.
Yep, thank you, Russian Federation, and then I call for Malaysia, followed by Kenya. Malaysia, please. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. High-level panel, Excellencies, local Calibarta participants, wish you good day, and I hope all of you are well and safe. Malaysia would like to congratulate the Committee on World Food Security and HPL Steering Committee for the report on food security and nutrition, building a global narrative towards 2030. The report not only highlights policy direction towards more sustainable food systems, but further acknowledges the essence of and complexity of the wide range of challenges in our food systems. We also welcome the important and crucial CFS voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition in achieving sustainable food systems and towards improving nutrition. The guidelines provide guidance to relevant stakeholders when designing policies, framework, strategies, and programs. Malaysia also acknowledges the importance of these policy papers and guidelines as key determinants for discussion as we progress towards the Food System Summit 2021 processes both in Rome and in New York. The involvement of the Rome-based agencies in this process as a substantive and knowledge-based agency on food systems will be crucial in the successful outcome of the Food System Summit 2021. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are highly concerned about the progress of the agenda to end hunger and achieve food security that has been very uneven. The number of people suffering from hunger in recent years has worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic discloses the fragility of our global food system and the importance of strengthening international coordination and cooperation of a global strategic framework for food security and nutrition. To mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, the government of Malaysia introduced the economic stimulus packages worth 260 billion ringgit, approximately $65 billion, to ease the burden on the people. For agriculture, approximately $250 million food security fund was allocated and channeled to farmers, fishermen, breeders, as well as micro, small, and medium enterprises to ensure the well-functioning food supply chain. It includes 26 infrastructure and short-term agriculture projects and for the food supply stock program. The program has established a more inclusive network of storage facilities for food to stabilize food item fluctuation due to disruption of supplies. In conclusion, Mr. Chair, we emphasize the importance of introducing policies that develop context-specific solutions, considering local condition and knowledge for resilient and food productive systems. In addition, the United Nations systems, in particular the Rome-based agencies, could play an important role in providing integrated support for countries to understand the challenges that arise in diverse types of rural and urban contexts, including support for small-scale farming systems, as well as support for access to healthy food in urban areas. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you very much, Malaysia. Next, Kenya, followed by France.
Hello.
Kenya, please.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you, Chairperson, for giving me the floor. I'm indeed pleased to participate in this meeting and present this statement on behalf of the African Regional Group. I take this opportunity to commend the CFS Chairperson for guiding this process and want to appreciate FAO management and other stakeholders' efforts which has culminated in this 47th session of CFS. Indeed, this meeting offers an opportunity and an important platform for multi-sector dialogue on food security and nutrition, which is an important agenda for the African region. Food and nutrition security, Chairperson, is an integral component of the SDGs, and the UN Agenda 2030 is quite significant. Food insecurity is therefore first and foremost about poverty and inequalities, which are also at the heart of undernourishment and malnourishment. Household food and nutrition security is also usually threatened by natural disasters and political and economic problems. I wish to seize this opportunity, therefore, to draw your kind attention to the significant challenges posed by the devastating COVID-19 pandemic to the already strained health, food, and nutrition security and broad socioeconomic conditions in Africa, including the disruptions to the food and agriculture systems, and on the other hand, the opportunities it revealed in terms of socioeconomic development. Ensuring the continent's food and nutrition security is therefore a multi-sectoral and global challenge, which implies prioritizing the modernization and intensification of family farms, as well as global rural transformation. This is why African leaders, through the Malabo Declaration Strategy and the African Union NEPAD flagship program, which is Comprehensive Africa Agricultural Development Program, have been encouraging a Pan-African process to put agriculture at the center of the agenda of individual African states as well as regional economic communities. Furthermore, Africa has decided to upgrade its food security strategy to a food sovereignty strategy and regional preference. The recently adopted ACFTA as a major Agenda 2063 flagship program will boost intra-regional food, hence improving food and nutrition security. We therefore call upon the governments, UNRBAs, and non-governmental stakeholders present here today to continue building synergy in the implementation of CFS products, including the already developed voluntary guidelines and mobilization of resources, since we all know that eradicating hunger is a monumental task that can only be achieved by working together. To that purpose, resilience in partnership with sustainable national ownership and leadership by stakeholders, including governments meeting their respective commitments, is very essential. Chairperson, the pursuit of gender equality and women's empowerment in the context of food security and nutrition is an issue that cannot be ignored. We encourage capacity development, improve gender inclusive policies, and stronger participation of women in dialogues that address food security and nutrition. Furthermore, Chairperson, Africa is the youngest continent with young population constituting about 90% of its population. We must put youth at the core of our development. Therefore, promotion of youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food security is core in promoting SDG 2 of zero hunger. There's urgent need, therefore, to support the youth in accessing finances, capacity building, and transfer of agricultural knowledge and technology, particularly in the developing countries. In conclusion, Chairperson, it is our hope that as we begin this meeting today and conclude on Thursday, we'll have made progress in our resolutions towards achieving sustainable food security and nutrition for not only ourselves, but also for the future generations. I thank you, Chairperson, and back to you.
Yep, thank you, Kenya, for regional statement of Africa. And now I give the floor to France, followed by civil society mechanism and then private sector mechanism. France, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La France s'aligne sur la déclaration prononcée par le Portugal au nom de l'Union européenne et de ses 27 États membres. La France salue le dernier rapport du HLPE, Food Security and Nutrition, Building a Global Narrative Toward 2030, qui nous a été présenté ce matin. Il fait la synthèse de 10 années de travaux, mais aussi trace des perspectives et dégage des recommandations précieuses en vue d'atteindre l'agenda 2030. Il souligne clairement la nécessité d'une transformation profonde de nos systèmes alimentaires pour les rendre durables et résilients. Il tient compte des effets de la pandémie de Covid-19 qui aggrave l'insécurité alimentaire et la malnutrition et éprouve nos systèmes alimentaires. La France considère d'ailleurs qu'il est important que le CSA puisse se saisir de cette question ou d'autres crises majeures pertinentes. CE a produit à travers 15 rapports de grande qualité une quantité impressionnante de connaissances scientifiques et de livrables politiques majeurs les livres sur les systèmes alimentaires et la nutrition que nous adopterons cette semaine. En cela, le HLPE joue pleinement son rôle d'interface sciences politiques de référence. Cette question des interfaces entre sciences et politique sera une question majeure dans la perspective du sommet des Nations Unies sur les systèmes alimentaires en septembre prochain et au-delà. À ce titre, la France considère qu'il est essentiel de tirer pleinement parti des enceintes et des outils existants, voire de les renforcer au regard de l'urgence des défis que connaissent nos systèmes alimentaires mondiaux. Ainsi, le sommet devrait être l'occasion de valoriser l'énorme travail réalisé par le CSA et le HLPE, mais aussi de leur donner un rôle clé dans le suivi de la mise en œuvre des actions et des orientations politiques qui auront été retenues, aux côtés notamment des agences romaines, la FAO, le FIDA et le PAM, et d'autres acteurs pertinents. Je vous remercie.
Yeah, thank you very much, France, for your. Okay, now I give the floor to civil society mechanism, followed by private sectors mechanism, please, CSM.
Estimados companheiros e companheiras, quisera saludar cordialmente el presidente del CCA, la FAO, el FID, el PMA, el GANIZAM e a todos os Estados membros presentes a esta 47 sessão plenária do CCA, espaço de diálogo e de recomendação de políticas muito importante para nós. Envio un saludo especial a los miembros del mecanismo de la sociedad civil y los pueblos indígenas, que representan las voces de los sujetos más afectados pelos impactos del COVID-19. Nuestras propuestas están presentes en los informes del MSC y los mensajes de las mujeres y de la juventud. Hoy siguen en curso los impactos dramáticos del COVID-19 en la seguridad alimentaria y la nutrición. El hambre sigue aumentando en el mundo y de acuerdo con el SOF 2020, el número de personas desnutridas va a aumentar en 132 millones. Es algo que está pasando ahora, en este momento, en nuestras comunidades y en nuestros territorios. Debemos reconocer que el COVID aumentó la crisis alimentaria y los sistemas alimentarios actuales siguen excluyendo los sujetos responsables por la producción sostenible de alimentos saludables. La pandemia es un fenómeno mundial que necesita una respuesta global. Por lo tanto, nosotros demandamos que el CCA adopte una propuesta multilateral coordinada a la COVID, que aborde las necesidades inmediatas de los pueblos y de los países más afectados. Esta respuesta debe considerar las contribuciones del GANESAN, especialmente la recomendación número 6 del informe sobre la descripción global y la recomendación número 4 del documento temático sobre el COVID-19. Es inaceptable que el COVID-19 no está en la agenda política del CCA 47. El CCA debe cumplir su mandato de dar una respuesta política multilateral y coordinada para apoyar los países más vulnerables e enfrentar la pandemia. No abordar la COVID-19 de manera conjunta aumentará la división y las desigualdades entre los países, tal como vemos ahora con la desigualdad escandalosa en la distribución y aplicación de la vacuna. Es necesario incluir en el plan de trabajo plurianual una actividad que permita al CCA construir propuestas políticas a los impactos del COVID a ser aplicada en el terreno por los gobiernos nacionales. Nosotros reivindicamos una transformación profunda de los sistemas alimentarios y el diseño de las Naciones Unidas para la agricultura familiar y otros marcos políticos pueden contribuir a la superación de esos grandes desafíos. Compañeras, compañeros, necesitamos un CCA fuerte, democrático, inclusivo, pues este es un espacio único que tenemos construido juntos durante la última década y que tiene resultados políticos muy valiosos para nuestros países y nuestros pueblos. También quiero informar que los colegas del mecanismo de la sociedad civil presentarán las propuestas de nosotros para la grande conferencia de los sistemas alimentarios. Muchísimas gracias y un buen CCA 47.
Thank you, CSM. Now I give the floor to PSM, please.
Thank you, Chair, honorable members and distinguished guests. I feel so honored to be here and to present something on behalf of PSM on the HLPE report. The report has been prepared in challenging times, and we acknowledge the effort and commitment made. The report comes at an important time as we prepare the UN Food System Summit, and the PSM is pleased to have been invited to join in the work of all action tracks where PSM members are now actively involved. Moving towards the Food System Summit, the report notes correctly where more work is needed. Firstly, the report notes that more research is needed on different models of sustainable agriculture, and we welcome that. However, we do recognize that a great deal of this research and analysis already exists and needs to be better captured, such as climate smart agriculture, precision farming, agroecology, regenerative agriculture, and other innovative methods. The report includes potential opportunities, but not the ones that are being implemented now. This also includes the need to examine and recognize that no one size fits all, and that there are trade-offs between the many approaches. The HLPE 14 report was originally tasked to do this. Secondly, the report also highlights that more research is needed on declining public investment for food security and nutrition. Again, we will suggest that there is much more existing research and evidence from institutions such as and this follows up on the Addis Ababa Advancing Sustainable Development. We have highlighted this relevant research as requested at the time of the electronic consultation and believe it remains a valid input and one that will benefit the discussions at the Food System Summit. Mr. Chair, as a Kenyan woman farmer who has grown into the role of aggregating crops, I assure you that those of us on the ground, that the recommendations to improve public investment and encourage investment are not enough to say. We have been saying this for years. What we lack are concrete recommendations on how actually we can get the finance in the hands of family farmers and SMEs. Priorities also include shocking gaps of infrastructure, including internet bandwidth in rural areas. We are concerned that the policy directions, that the potential policy directions and recommendations do not foresee any role of private sector engagement. In this regard, the bonding stance and policy to accelerate food systems transformation conference last week, and we thank the government of France for their support, provided several ideas for the way forward. The discussions highlighted the need to build combinations of all the best science, including the private sector, noting the progress made in addressing the COVID pandemic by cooperating such alliances. This narrative is not a narrative that will help us to achieve the SDGs. Mr. Chair, we on the ground need more clear and concrete steps to address the shortfalls that we face to access finance, technology, infrastructure, and means of production. And as the Director General of FAWAD said that 2030 is only 9 harvests away. So the time to act is now, and we need to be concrete now in order for us to achieve what we are saying here and in order for us to achieve the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PSM. Next, I would like to call for Brazil, followed by Republic of Korea, and then Indonesia and Thailand. Brazil, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to you and everyone. As the SOFI 2020 has showed us, with abundant figures, malnutrition is unfortunately still on the rise. On the same stride, the main pathway to combating malnutrition, healthy diets, are less accessible to many in current times. This puts social and economic priorities in the center of action needed, reaffirming that the only way to tackle hunger and malnutrition is for all stakeholders to undertake holistic measures which take into account the 3 pillars of sustainable development. Safeguarding the environment means necessarily combating poverty, improving livelihoods and equity among citizens, and creating economic opportunity at all levels. To achieve sustainable developments, investments are needed in research and development. For instance, to combat climate change, the technological model of Brazilian agriculture contributes to the maintenance of carbon in the soil, to the no-till system. in intensification and recovery of degraded pastures and initiatives such as the carbon neutral beef. The low carbon agriculture plan developed in Brazil completed 10 years in 2020 and was responsible for recovering 50 million hectares of degraded pastures, having received more than $17 billion US dollars in investments, being capable of combining benefits for the climate and the environment with gains in productivity and income for the producers. Mr. Chairman, we have all recognized that an open, predictable, non-discriminatory trading system is a key element in achieving food security and nutrition. But this can be a very general statement. On designing public policies aiming at development of sustainable food systems for healthy diets, we should refrain from adopting unjustified trade measures, mainly because they prevent the desired outcome of more resilient and sustainable food systems. Example, bonds, and I don't need to quote. To finalize, Mr. Chairman, more than 5 years after its adoption, we should recall that our work in the CFS must follow the guidance of the 2030 Agenda, combining social, economic, and environmental sustainability. A world free from malnutrition is necessarily a world free from poverty, where farm workers and entire food system actors from end to end aims at equity and equality, with a view to providing livelihoods, leaving no one behind, attaining sustainable food systems for healthy diets for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Brazil, for your statement. Now I give the floor to Republic of Korea, followed by Indonesia and then Thailand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. The global community has only less than 10 years to achieve Sustainable Development Goals. While the number of the undernourished has increased, along with the various risks such as climate change and COVID-19 pandemic. Against this backdrop, our committee's role as an inclusive international and intergovernmental platform dealing with food security issues is significant more than ever. Republic of Korea appreciates the high-level panel of experts for its great efforts on the comprehensive, timely report. My delegation expects this report to be used as a valuable material for food systems discussion, policy developments, and implementations during the preparation of the Food Systems Summit. With our full support for the concept of food security, the assessment of the current trends, and the potential policy directions demonstrated herein, we'd like to briefly touch upon environmental and market trends. First, my delegation recognizes agricultural and rural areas as a major sector that is deeply intertwined with the environment and lies at the forefront of the major threat. According to the current global trend towards carbon neutrality and the food energy climate nexus, the Korean government is proactively developing and disseminating agricultural measures to reduce greenhouse gases, as well as renewable energies from various agricultural byproducts. We strongly suggest member states should take actions together based on a firm belief that every member in the planning has to take each own part. Also, we look forward to having constructive discussions regarding measures for sustainable food systems at the P4G Summit, namely Partnership for Green Growth and Global Goals 2030, which is to be hosted by the Korean government this May. Secondly, the COVID-19 pandemic apparently revealed our challenges, that a disruption of the supply chain causes various cascading effects, including detrimental results on food security. In this regard, my delegation strongly emphasizes the fundamental principle that the global food trade needs to be open and transparent, based on reliable and scientific evidence. Republic of Korea emphasizes a close cooperation among member states and national organizations and partners. We look forward to continuing our collaboration with various partners through exchanging relevant information and knowledge during our struggle with the pandemic and afterwards. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you very much, Republic of Korea. Next, Indonesia, followed by Thailand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. First of all, Indonesia would like to appreciate the work of the CFS SLE Steering Committee for recent reports. The report has indicated that urgent action are needed to support countries in achieving the target of eradicating hunger and malnutrition in 2030. I believe we all agree that 2020 will be the challenging year for the global community because of COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, we would like to welcome HLPE recommendation that support or dimension of food security and guarantee the right to the food for all. It is helpful resources for us to create more supportive policies in achieving food security. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, in this opportunity, we would like to share our government effort in addressing food security problem in Indonesia. Indonesia has developed legal frameworks that are conducive to the right to food. The Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia, 1945, guarantees the right to food as the basic component to achieve the quality human resource. To foster the right to food, the Indonesia government has established Food Law 18/2012, the Government Regulation 17/2015, as well as National Strategy and National Action Plan for Food Security and Nutrition updated every 5 years. This policy framework are implemented through several programs focusing on preserving the sustainability of food supply chain and protecting farmer and fishermen, such as provision of social assistance program, utilization of the home yard to produce local healthy diet as part of our contribution to the UN Decade for Family Farming. Promotion food diversification, strengthening food resource, as well as improvement of the national food logistics system. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our effort has resulted a positive outcome. The data showed there was reduction in prevalence of stunting, wasting, and overweight in the last 3 years. According to the Global Food Security Index, GFSE, and the Global Food Security Experience Scale, yes, Indonesia rank also continue to improve. Finally, I would like to reaffirm Indonesia's commitment to support the global effort and ready to collaborate with all stakeholders, including through the short and triangular cooperation in addressing the ongoing impact of the COVID-19 crisis on food system and to achieve the 2030 agenda. I thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Indonesia. Now I give the floor to Thailand, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Thailand expressed its appreciation to the HLPE and the Steering Committee for the great efforts in delivering the important analytical report. We acknowledge the key findings of the HLPE report and would like to share our views as follows. First, we welcome the update of the conceptual framework of food security to include agency and sustainability as additional key dimensions. The inclusion of these two dimensions help better address the diverse and complex interactions among all stakeholders in the food system. Although further discussion may be needed to reach a common understanding of the implication of the updated concept. Second, Thailand is aware of the urgency to radically transform food system to grant safe food and healthy diets for all in a sustainable way. Mr. Chair, Thailand is committed to the achievement of the SDGs and continue to strive to reduce hunger and poverty along with promoting food security and nutrition at all levels. At national level, we have adopted the principle of sufficiency economics philosophy, or SEP, as the main pathway to achieve the SDGs. The principles of SEP center around the concept of sufficiency and encourage people and local communities to become agents of change by leading a balanced life to become self-reliant, self-sufficient, and resilient. In addition, Thailand recently introduced the provision crop calendar to support area-based food security management at local level. The provision crop calendar contains detailed information on monthly agricultural production, area of plantation, harvested area, product distribution with data breakdown at district and provincial level. The provincial crop calendar is the tool for each province to prepare local food reserve plan in time of crisis. Finally, we recognize that significant political shift and government commitment are needed to drive the transition toward sustainable food system at all levels. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yep, thank you very much, Thailand, for your remark. Now I give the floor to China, please.
视频好像打不开，我的那个视频打不开，可能是在你们这里设置有点问题。
I'm not sure. Yeah, we see you.
哎，对，你们刚才已经开放了。
No, we see you. We see you. Yeah.
好，谢谢主席，又见面了。刚才我的同事 Martin 和他们做了一个高端组报告的介绍。大家知道我是参与了高端组从头到尾的工作，但是今天我发言呢，不是以高端组委员的身份，而是以中国政府代表的身份发言。各位同事大家好。中国高度赞赏联合国两岸委以及联合国两岸委高级别专家组准备了这份十分有价值的报告。面对全球的饥饿人口不降反升，新冠肺炎疫情的持续影响，如果不尽快的采取措施扭转这种不利的局面，联合国可持续发展目标中减少饥饿人口这个目标，就是 SDG 2，将难以实现。这既是研究报告的节能，也是国际社会的广泛共识。为此，必须转变观念，携手合作，采取切实有力的行动，共同为建设无饥饿的世界做出努力。高专组的报告分析了全球粮食安全与营养形势以及面临的巨大挑战，同时提出了迈向2030年实现可持续发展目标背景下，全球粮食系统必须进行的几个方面的根本性转型 尤其是粮食安全的概念，以前强调4个维度，就是供给、获取、利用和稳定。这份报告新增加了2个维度，就是可持续性、能动性。我们认为，充分反映了当今世界对粮食安全和营养问题的关切，以及在探寻解决方法需要做出的巨大努力。高专组的报告特别强调多利益相关方的更加广泛、积极主动的参与，以及需要采取的具体行动，强调更多个妇女、小农以及一些弱势的群体赋权，政府机构之间的协调合作，以及加强在国家、区域、全球层面对粮食安全的治理。我们认为这是非常必要的，也是十分富有启发价值的。它能够激发我们实现从思想到行动的根本转变，以便更好的作为，更主动的作为。谢谢主席。
Yep. Thank you very much for your remark. Now it's 12:30, and that's why we try to manage our time as we planned. I can inform you that our secretary, we still can have more minutes for statements.
Unfortunately, no. The interpretation is cutting off now at 12:30. Plus, we have side events.
Sure. Okay. Thank you very much for this morning. Now the morning sessions is concluded, and I would like to invite all of you to attend the side events, which will start from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Which actually today there are 3 side events. The first one is transforming agricultural innovations for people, nature, and climate. And the second one is exploring the application of CFS instrument to address gender, youth inequality, and data system in small-scale fisheries. The third side event is how COVID-19 affected our school feeding program and how to strengthen the post-COVID-19, including through homegrown school meal. And I would like to inform you that we will resume the afternoon session of the CFS in the afternoon at 2:30 p.m. And all the list on the hands that I have, I ask secretary to keep the record, and then we will proceed according to the list that we have at the moment. And we assume that today we can finish our afternoon session before 5:30. Now, thank you very much, and then hope you will join. We invite you to join the side events, and also we'll see you after at 2:30. Thank you very much.